I bring you greetings on behalf of Dr. Wardinski, our superintendent, and the Huntsville City Schools Board of Education. We have a few members here this afternoon, as well as our leadership team. It is always a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to speak with individuals at the beginning of a school year, and I always begin every school year with the expectation that it's going to be absolutely the best school year in my calling as an educator. This year is no different. The journey we began last year serves as the impetus to drive us forward for even greater impact on student achievement in Huntsville City Schools. We embrace the vision that every student will achieve an equitable education. Why? Because it is their right as a citizen to walk out of our doors at the end of 12th grade, ready for the world of work or to pursue a college degree. Now, we were pioneers in education last year as we closed the digital divide through the implementation of a digital one-to-one initiative. Our students were provided the very best that education has to offer through the access of the digital curriculum and a world-class curriculum that was accessible to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all 28,361 students. Unlike many districts, we did not experience an implementation dip. You might wonder what's that? That's usually when you start to do something new, you'll see all of these drops. Instead, we had a 19% increase in the area of math. We had an increase in the area of reading. We saw decreases in discipline in level 1 and level 2 referrals, and we saw improvement in our graduation rate. So those are certainly successes for us to continue to build upon. We do it because we're committed to every student graduating from Huntsville City Schools with the core academic knowledge and skills to pursue those careers they're ready to pursue or move on to college. And we just happen to be the only profession that has an opportunity to touch all future professions. We're building and preparing students to become those futures: doctors, lawyers, engineers, pharmacists, cyber technicians. In other words, I probably can't pronounce or haven't been invented yet, but we're preparing them for those wonderful things. I know the challenges teachers are faced with each day. My first educational calling was as a teacher, and I always say it's probably the hardest work I ever did. So thank you, teachers, for all of the work that you're doing in those classrooms each day. I remind administrators and remind others in central office that the real game is happening in those classrooms, and we have to be in the classrooms in order to support our teachers. So we're very appreciative of what you're doing. AEA, we look forward to continuing the partnership and collaboration this year. We always enjoy our opportunities to meet with AEA reps to talk about how we can work together to do the work that we've all been put here to do. Thank you again, and we appreciate this opportunity to work with you. Have a wonderful school year.
You know, we are so fortunate today to have our mayor to bring our keynote address. And I was sharing with Dr. Wardinski about the mayor coming, and he was so disappointed that he could not be here. We want to recognize Keith and his department in the back, Keith Ward. You know, let's give them a big round of applause. Of course, we have our own ETV, our own station here, which is an affiliate, a branch of the Alabama Public Television, and they do such a wonderful job. And the mayor said, I want to make sure that they're there because I want to make sure that everyone knows. And Rex, would you share with them that Tommy Battle is a true partner of public education? Dr. Wardinski cited all of the new facilities that are fixing to go up in North Huntsville, and not only there, but Grissom and many, many other renovations all across the city. But, you know, quite frankly, let's be honest, the North has been neglected building-wise. And the mayor has stepped in with Dr. Wardinski and provided so many things to help make that building plan happen, of course, citywide. But let's give a warm welcome to a friend of education, our mayor, Tommy Bauer.
Public education is the foundation of our community. We are partners with public education in the city of Huntsville to make sure that our community has what it needs to be able to continue to grow. We appreciate each and every one of the support staff, the teachers, the administrators, that all take their time out, A, to attend this, but B, to make a special effort in our community to make our community better. And also, we wouldn't be a success without you. This community would not have the success that it has without the education background that we have today. That is a very important thing to realize. We would not be where we are without you. I want to introduce my wife, Eula, who's been introduced before. Eula, thank you for coming today. Eula, many of you know, she was a teacher for 27 years, a kindergarten teacher. And in 2001, she was Madison County Teacher of the Year in the elementary side. And her love of teaching didn't stop there. When she retired, she kept thinking about what can I do for these teachers out there. And she remembers the day that she walked into her portable 27 years ago and saw the bare walls there, and luckily she'd saved up some money and spent $2,000 to $3,000 fixing up her room so that she could have a room that her babies could come to that they would appreciate. And so she started a group called Free to Teach. Free to Teach provides materials for teachers so that they can put them in their rooms, in their classrooms, and do something for the kids. And it's a very special thing. She was talking the other day, and the most excited you'll ever see is when she starts talking about these new teachers coming in. Teachers for the first time coming in, and they're coming in to get material at the Free to Teach store, and they're so excited about having something to put up on the walls or something to, that they can use through it from the community. And that is one of the things that makes her special and her effort special. Now, being in the home of a kindergarten teacher, I get put in time out quite often. Sometimes I have my color pulled. and many times I don't think I deserve it, but I'm sure I do. But, you know, I look back at public education, and I think without public education, where would I be today? Where would any of us sitting in this room be today? When I came along in public education, and this will date me, we were having to buy textbooks, and many people couldn't buy textbooks back in that day. And AEA was there, came to an agreement with the governor, and we were able to get free textbooks in the classrooms. The first time we started having equality in education was because of the efforts of AEA. You know, the lessons I learned in high school, the lessons of teamwork on the football field with Coach Bob Finley, the lessons I learned in the debate class and how to debate and think both sides of an issue, those were lessons that were given to me by public education. The lessons of how to find the root word in a Latin phrase by Miss Tingle, that's what helped make me what I am today. The lessons that we learned in leadership and organization when we went through and did drama classes, that was part of education. Just as important as the geometry, the math, the spelling, the history, that's part of education, and that's part of the education offering that we should provide here in Huntsville and across the state. It's very important to us. You know, when we look at what's happening today, we look at the collective lessons that are taught by the public school system. Those collective lessons are what give us our history today. Those are the collective lessons that let us put man on the moon. Those are collective lessons that made Huntsville write history in the history books when we provided the propulsion systems that put man into deep space. That is why we have a public school system, because that public school system provides for each and every one of us. You know, one of the proudest moments that I had as mayor was when we had the vote last August, and we had the vote on extending a property tax. That extension of property tax meant that we were going to support our school systems, that we were going to build new schools, that we were going to have new schools in the city of Huntsville. And that vote passed by 71%. This community supports education. This community takes that amount that we get from the state and we add to it, and we provide $10,000 per student in education support. That's a partnership. The partnership with the Huntsville Education Association, with the Alabama Education Association, with the Huntsville school systems and the city of Huntsville, so that we can have the kind of system that we need in education that provides for a community that advances, that gets number one community this, best place to retire, best place to start a new business. We are partners in education, and we will always be partners in education. We partner with local groups when we start talking about the Boys and Girls Club, our churches which provide mentors and reading coaches, our Village of Promise, Second Mile, Huntsville Learning Center, Mary Mack Hall, which helps with our handicapped kids. You know, Lincoln Village, when you look at all the efforts that are being done across the board, we are partners with education, and we're partners on a day-to-day basis. But our partnership of education is nothing if we don't have teachers in those classrooms, if we don't have administrators sitting there in those schools, if we don't have support staff who will sit there and make sure we have a clean environment and that we have good food. Who would ever think that we're going to start serving breakfast every morning so everybody's ready to learn? And if we did not do that, we wouldn't have the learning environment that we have today. I want to say, we just applauded them, but we do need to applaud everybody who's part of that process, whether you're support personnel, whether you're teachers, whether you're administrators. You are part of the process that makes the education process a success in Huntsville, Alabama, and I want to say thank you today. You know, Huntsville is, we brand ourselves a smart place to live, work, and play. And a smart place, when you start thinking about a smart place starts with your education systems. We have a goal in Huntsville to make sure that everybody who goes away recognize that we're a smart place. And people say, why do you want to be a smart place? Because that's what we want to focus on. When we start talking about Huntsville, Alabama, we want to be a place where we talk about cyber, we talk about energy, we talk about geospatial, we talk about a lot of things that, as a mayor, when they really get into the deep weeds of it, we nod. And we nod like somebody who knows what they're talking about. And we may not know what they're talking about, but we know that that's part of our process, that we have to do that to be a smart place. And we have our schools. Our schools are a smart place. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a competition our competition was in the what was it, Total Com, a cyber event that Dianetics did. 50 schools from across the world competed in that competition. The schools of Grissom and New Century came in second and fourth. That's something that happens in a smart place. We sent over to England, we sent a team from Huntsville Technology. And they went over to show how we can run an electric car, a solar car, and how we can race against the world. And we went over there for our first time, and we competed against the world. We were the only USA team there, coming from Huntsville, Alabama. And they got in the finals. They're going back in the fall, so we'll see how well we do. Another smart thing to do. You know, and as much of us as we are a smart place, we're a place of change. Every one of us have been through change. In the last 50 years, I look back. Now, I don't want to age anybody, but how many of you started off in the computer industry in the punch card generation? I started off in the punch card generation. That was in the 1970s. My first computer I saw was a big box computer bigger than this room, and you put punch cards through. 1970s. 1980s, we became the PC generation. And everybody had their little personal computer, and I bought a personal computer for my business because it then took me 35 minutes to do payroll rather than 4 hours when I put it on the big spreadsheet and had to write down everything. And then the 1990s, we started looking around, and we became the laptop generation. We had laptops, and we could all sit around and use our laptops and learn that technology that we never had a chance to look at before. In the 2000s, we became the iPad generation. In 2010, I'd say we became the iPhone generation. But that iPhone has more power in it than that 1980s or 1970s computer that used punch cards. Has more power than that. So we've seen change. And each of us are seeing that change, and we're seeing it in the classrooms. Who would have ever thought that every student would have a computer, and that we got to learn those computers? And we got to learn about one-to-one technology. And we've got to learn about nanosatellites, cyber information, big data, and dark fiber. We've got to learn about thorium fluoride reactors. We've got to learn, we've got to teach it. And that's the change that is hitting us right now today. That change that over 50 years that we've had, where we've gone from the big box computers to the iPhones that are sitting here right on our belts, that's the change that we're all having to teach to. And bless you, each one of you, because the time that you're having to put in the classroom, the 32 hours that you got of training that came in, that's what you're having to come up to be able to teach these kids of today. The kids of today are kids of change, and it's a changing generation. And we want to tell you that each one of you have done marvelous jobs. When we start looking at change and the change in the classroom, we are still a smart place. This community is still a smart place, and it doesn't happen without you. On Tuesday, July 23rd, we sat down, we had a meeting, Lauren Hall called a meeting to talk about the 9 failing schools in Huntsville, Alabama. And we heard a report from those 9 failing schools. And if any of you were there, I think some of y'all were there, weren't you? Raise your hand if you were there, okay? If you heard that report, you came away saying, wow, these people have their act together. How could they be classified as failing schools? When you started reading the report and you read about these schools that had math gains of 39%, reading gains of 21%, Lakewood, math gains of 20%, reading of 20%, Morris Elementary, 75% of 6th graders were in honors class. And you started going through some of those numbers of those schools that have been put as, quote, failing schools. You say, how could they be failing schools? They are not failing schools. They are surviving schools, and they are schools that each one of you are taking a part in or being a part of, who are making a comeback right now that is second to none. And right now we're seeing a resurgence of our school system that is second to none, a resurgence of a school system that had its rough days, and right now we're seeing everything come forward. We're seeing the one-to-one technology coming into place. We're seeing the STAR assessment tell us how well we're achieving right now. We're seeing these schools rise up. We're seeing administrators come forth with goals, with ways they're going to achieve those goals, and a teamwork of how we're going to do that. And we're teaming with those schools. We're teaming with those schools with our churches, with our Boys and Girls Clubs. We're teaming with those schools with our civic associations, with our employers, providing reading coaches, providing math labs, providing something that can make a difference in education. And if I want to say one thing, we're all in this together. We're all in this as partners, and we're partners for education. And we will be partners for education for throughout, because the city of Huntsville believes in education. We believe in a smart place. We believe that we want people to come here and look at this community and say there's something different about this community. We believe that we want to have an education system that is second to none, and each of you are part of that education system that is second to none. I want to thank you today, and thank you publicly for everything that you do, because you are the ones who are making a difference. You're the ones who bring in our community up. You're the reason that we can become the #1 community in America. You're the reason that we can become, again, the top place to retire, the top place to start a family. Because of your work, you are making this whole community a better place. And I want to thank you for the efforts that you're doing today. Thank you very much.
Wow. Anita, now you see why Huntsville is ranked #1 or #5 or the top 10 in every category that is put out across the country because of the leadership that we have. Wouldn't it be refreshing if we had that in Montgomery through the governor's office?